Have you ever wondered about the true story behind the marathon race? It's not just a 26.2-mile run. It's a tale forged in the fires of ancient battle. A story of courage, sacrifice, and one man's incredible endurance. This is the story of Philippides. Our journey begins in 490 BC. The mighty Persian Empire, led by King Darius I, set its sights on Greece. "I want the Greeks to be our slaves and their cities our spoil," he declared. An immense army, over 100,000 strong, was assembled. Their plan was to land on the plain of Marathon, just outside Athens, where their cavalry and elephants could easily crush the much smaller Greek force. Panic gripped Athens. A Greek slave, having escaped the Persian camp, arrived with the terrifying news. The Athenian Senate quickly appointed General Miltiades to command their small army. They gathered what forces they could: 10,000 infantrymen from Athens and another 1,000 from the city of Plataea. Only 11,000 men against the Persian juggernaut. It was a desperate situation. "We need the help of Sparta," the senators cried. In this dire moment, they didn't send an ordinary messenger. They called upon Philippides, the greatest athlete in all of Greece, a champion runner from the last Olympiad. "Go to Sparta," they commanded, "and beg for reinforcements." Spurning the horse they offered him, the agile Philippides set off on foot. "We shall meet at Marathon," he yelled as he departed. The distance was immense, roughly 180 kilometers of rugged terrain. Yet, through sheer will and athletic prowess, Philippides covered it in just 2 days. But his monumental effort was in vain. The Spartans refused to help. Indignant and heartbroken, Philippides didn't despair. He grabbed his spear and shield and ran with all his remaining energy, not back to Athens, but directly to the battlefield at Marathon. He had to join his comrades. Exhausted, he reached General Miltiades and delivered the grim news. But Miltiades was a brilliant strategist and a man of unwavering resolve. Unfazed, he ordered his men to litter the plain with logs and branches, creating a trap to neutralize the Persian cavalry. Seeing Philippides' state, the general advised him to rest. "You don't need to fight," he said. But Philippides, his body screaming in protest, replied with a smile, "When the homeland is in danger, one does not feel tired." He chose to fight. Meanwhile, back in Athens, fear had turned to despair. The most pessimistic citizens were ready to burn their own city to the ground, leaving only ruins for the invaders. They finally agreed to wait just one more day for news from the front. The city held its breath, its fate hanging by a thread. On the morning of September 29th, 490 BC, the battle began. Miltiades gave the order. Chanting their battle hymn, the 11,000 Greeks charged with a fury the Persians had never witnessed. They smashed into the bewildered Persian lines, piercing their flanks. The mighty Persian army, overwhelmed by this limitless courage, broke and fled in chaos, leaving behind thousands of casualties and prisoners. It was an impossible victory. But the battle wasn't over. Some of the Persian ships had escaped and were now sailing to attack the undefended city of Athens. Miltiades knew what he had to do. He turned to the one man who could outrun the Persian fleet. He turned to Philippides. The heroic athlete, fresh from the heat of battle, didn't hesitate. He began to run again. He ran to bring the news of victory and to warn Athens of the approaching ships, to prevent his people from destroying their own city in a panic. He ran and ran, wounded and exhausted, pushing his body far beyond its limits. Finally, he reached the gates of Athens. The waiting crowd fell into a deep, respectful silence. The athlete was a ghost of himself, dragging his feet, his arms hanging limp. The sight was terrifying. No one dared to speak. Then, mustering his very last breath, Philippides whispered the immortal words, "We have won." And with that, he collapsed to the ground, his life's mission complete. He had given his life to save his city and his homeland. Philippides became a symbol of patriotism and sacrifice. His incredible feat has echoed through the centuries, inspiring the modern marathon race. Today, a burial mound known as the Tomb stands on the plain of Marathon, honoring the brave Athenians who fell in that memorable battle. And the spirit of Philippides, the man of the marathon run, lives on, a testament to what we can achieve when we fight for something greater than ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into history. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Imagine a world where a king, faced with an impossibly vast army, tells his men, "Then we will fight in the shade." This isn't a line from a movie, it's the defiant cry of King Leonidas of Sparta, a man whose story has echoed through millennia. Today, we're not just recounting a battle, we're delving into the soul of Sparta, the city-state that bred warriors so disciplined, their very name became a synonym for austerity and courage. The year is 480 BC. 10 years have passed since the Greeks miraculously defeated the Persian invaders at Marathon, but the threat was far from over. Xerxes, the new Persian king, thirsted for revenge. He amassed an army so colossal it was said to drink rivers dry. To cross into Europe, he constructed a bridge of boats across the Hellespont. When a storm destroyed his first attempt, an enraged Xerxes reportedly ordered his soldiers to whip the sea itself for its insolence. This was the man marching toward Greece, a man who believed he could command the very elements. Faced with this existential threat, the divided Greek states did something remarkable. They united. And at the forefront of the defense stood Sparta. Leading them was their king, Leonidas. Their mission? To make a stand at a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae. This sliver of land, just 7 kilometers long, was the key to central Greece. Here, a few could hold off a multitude. And if anyone could do it, it was the Spartans. But what made a Spartan a Spartan? Their character was forged in a crucible of discipline from birth. They were a people of few words but immense action, a society where duty to the state trumped all personal desire. Consider the Spartan women, renowned for their strength and influence. When a foreigner once remarked, "You are the only women who rule men," a Spartan woman's proud reply was, "We are also the only ones who give birth to brave men." This wasn't just a boast, it was a statement of purpose. This mindset was woven into the fabric of their lives. When the mother of the hero Brasidas heard visitors praise her son as the best man in Sparta, she corrected them. "He was brave," she said, "but Sparta has many more who honorably fulfill their duty." There was no room for individual ego, only collective honor. Another mother told her son was holding a dangerous post. Simply stated, "Let him stand firm. His brother will replace him in the service of the homeland." The individual was a component. The state was the machine. Perhaps the most striking example is the mother who ran to meet a messenger returning from battle. "What news do you bring?" she asked. The messenger replied, "Your 5 sons have honored Sparta." But she pressed on, "I am not asking you that. Has the homeland won?" "Yes," he confirmed. Her response, "Then let us run to give thanks to the gods." The loss of all her children was secondary to the victory of her people. This was the Spartan way. Their values extended beyond the battlefield. Respect for elders was paramount. At the Olympic Games, an old man wandered through the stands searching for a seat. None was offered until he reached the Spartan section, where every man, young and old, immediately rose to their feet. The entire stadium erupted in applause. The old man, moved to tears, exclaimed, "All Greeks know virtue, but only the Spartans practice it." This was the culture that shaped King Leonidas. Just before marching to Thermopylae, he and his chosen 300 warriors held their own funeral games. They knew their mission was likely a final one. As he departed, his wife, Gorgo, asked him for a final command. His reply wasn't one of personal sentiment, but of civic duty. "Marry a man worthy of me and bring forth children worthy of our nation." His legacy was not his own life, but the future strength of Sparta. As the Persian horde, a tidal wave of men and steel, closed in on the narrow pass, a scout rushed to Leonidas. "The Persians are upon us now," he cried. The king, unfazed, simply replied, "Rather, they are beneath us." Another messenger, trying to convey the sheer number of enemy archers, warned, "There are so many of them that their arrows will blot out the sun." This brings us to Leonidas's immortal reply, a testament to Spartan defiance, "Then we will fight in the shade." Xerxes, baffled that such a tiny force would dare to oppose him, sent a final demand, "Surrender and lay down your weapons." The Spartan answer was as short as it was sharp, "Come and take them." For 3 days, the unthinkable happened. Leonidas and his small band of Greeks held the pass. 300 Spartans, along with a few thousand allies, repelled wave after wave of the Persian army, inflicting catastrophic losses. The elite Persian immortals, Xerxes' personal guard, were sent in and were cut down like wheat. The narrow terrain nullified the Persian numbers, funneling them into the Greek meat grinder of shields and spears. But heroism can be undone by betrayal. A local Greek named Ephialtes, hoping for a reward, showed Xerxes a hidden mountain path that would allow the Persians to circle behind the Greek lines. The position was compromised. The pass was about to be surrounded. Realizing the situation was hopeless, the Greek commanders decided to withdraw the bulk of their forces to fight another day. But Spartan law was absolute. A warrior was to hold his position to the end, never retreating. For Leonidas and his 300, there was no choice. They would stay, they would die. Ordering a final meal, the king told his men, "Tonight, we dine with Pluto." As the next dawn broke, the Spartans found themselves completely surrounded. They didn't cower. They didn't surrender. They charged. Fighting with a fury born of desperation and duty, they fell upon the Persians, determined to take as many of the enemy with them as possible. They fought until their spears broke, then fought with their swords. When their swords shattered, they fought with their hands and teeth. They died to the last man, singing the battle hymns of their ancestors. Their only funeral rite was the mountain of enemy dead they left behind. Back in Sparta, the news was received not with parades or elaborate mourning, but with a stern, simple acknowledgement. They have done nothing more than honorably fulfill their duty. Their sacrifice was not in vain. The stand at Thermopylae bought the rest of Greece precious time to organize its defenses. It became a rallying cry, a symbol of what free men were willing to do to defend their homeland. Later, at the very spot where these heroes fell, a monument was erected. It bore a simple, powerful inscription by the poet Simonides. "Stranger, tell the Spartans that their sons have stood firm here in obedience to their sacred laws." The story of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans is more than just history. It's a timeless lesson in courage, sacrifice, and the incredible power of a people united by a common purpose. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories aren't measured in survival, but in the unwavering defense of what you believe in. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back to ancient Greece. If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more tales of heroes and history. We'll see you in the next one. Have you ever heard the phrase, "Strike but hear me"? It's one of the most badass lines in history, spoken by a man who saved Western civilization with nothing but his wits and a fleet of wooden ships. This is the story of Themistocles, the Athenian politician and general who outsmarted an empire. Our story begins in the shadow of a colossal invasion. The mighty Persian Empire, led by King Xerxes, had just smashed through the heroic stand at Thermopylae. The 300 Spartans were gone, and the path into the heart of Greece was wide open. The Persian army swarmed across the land like a locust plague, burning, looting, and leaving a trail of devastation. Their target? The jewel of Greece, Athens. The city of Athens was completely destroyed, burned to the ground. But its people, its soul, had survived. How? Because they had heeded the advice of one man, Themistocles. Years before this terrifying invasion, Themistocles had a vision. He knew the Persians would return after their first failed attempt at Marathon. While others were complacent, he understood that Greece's salvation wouldn't be found on land, but at sea. He was a political genius, a master of persuasion, and he had a monumental task ahead of him, convincing a city of merchants, philosophers, and farmers to become a naval superpower. But how do you convince an entire city to invest everything in a fleet of ships? You appeal to a higher power. The Athenians sent a delegation to the most sacred site in their world, the Oracle of Delphi. They asked the Pythia, the priestess of Apollo, how they should face the impending doom. Her cryptic answer came back: "Fortify yourselves with wooden walls." Wooden walls? What did that even mean? Some thought it meant literally building a wooden barricade around the Acropolis. A last, desperate stand. It would have been a slaughter. But the cunning Themistocles saw the true meaning. He stepped before the panicked assembly of Athens and declared that the oracle was not talking about a physical wall on land. The wooden walls she spoke of were the hulls of their ships. He argued with passion and unshakable logic. Their only hope was to abandon the city to the flames, put their entire population onto their fleet, and trust in the navy he had spent years building. It was an insane gamble. Imagine being told to leave your home, your land, everything you've ever known, and put your faith in a floating wooden fortress. But Themistocles was convincing. He had been using the profits from a newly discovered silver mine not for public handouts, but for constructing a state-of-the-art navy of over 200 triremes. Now that investment was about to pay off. The Athenians agreed. As the Persian army marched on their defenseless city, the people of Athens evacuated. The men of fighting age boarded the warships. The women, children, and elderly were ferried to the nearby island of Salamis. From their ships, the Athenians watched in horror and grief as their beloved city was sacked and burned. The smoke rising from the Acropolis was a funeral pyre for their homes, but not for their spirit. The Persian fleet, a massive armada of over 800 ships, was baffled. They had conquered Athens, but where was the enemy? Finding the city empty, they learned the Greeks had retreated to Salamis. Confident in their overwhelming numbers, the Persian commanders decided to sail in and crush the Greek navy once and for all. They headed straight for the narrow straits separating Salamis from the mainland, and they sailed right into Themistocles' trap. The Greek fleet consisted of about 378 ships, less than half the size of the Persian force. The supreme commander of the allied Greek navy was not Themistocles, but a Spartan named Eurybiades. Eurybiades and the other commanders were terrified. Seeing the sheer size of the Persian fleet, their plan was to retreat, to run, and to try and defend the coast of the Peloponnese further south. This is where Themistocles' true genius shone, not just as a strategist, but as a leader. He knew that retreating was a death sentence. The Greek alliance was fragile. If they scattered, they would be picked off one by one. Their only chance was to fight here, now, in the narrow confines of the Salamis Strait, where the Persians' superior numbers would count for nothing. The narrow channel would prevent the Persians from surrounding them and would turn the battle into a chaotic ship-to-ship slugging match where Greek skill and heavier ships could win the day. Themistocles argued fiercely in the council of war. He pleaded, he reasoned, he demanded that they stay and fight. Eurybiades, the Spartan commander, was a man of action, not words. Frustrated and angered by Themistocles' relentless insistence, he lost his temper. He raised his commander's staff, threatening to strike the Athenian down for his insubordination. In this moment, the fate of the world hung in the balance. A lesser man might have backed down. A prideful man might have drawn his own sword. But Themistocles was neither. He was a man focused on a single goal: victory. Unflinching, calm, and with ice in his veins, he looked the enraged Spartan in the eye and delivered the immortal line, "Strike, but hear me." The sheer audacity and courage of that statement stopped Eurybiades in his tracks. The raw power of Themistocles' conviction cut through the Spartan's anger. He lowered his staff. He listened. Themistocles laid out his brilliant strategy. He even sent a secret messenger to the Persian king Xerxes, pretending to be a traitor. The message told Xerxes that the Greeks were planning to escape overnight and that he should block the straits immediately to trap them. Xerxes, arrogant and eager for a final victory, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He ordered his fleet to move in, sealing his own doom. The next morning, the Persian fleet sailed into the narrow strait, crowded and disorganized. The Greeks, rowing to the beat of the paean, their battle hymn, crashed into them. The battle was a brutal, chaotic masterpiece of naval warfare. The heavier Greek triremes, with their bronze rams, smashed through the lighter Persian ships. In the cramped space, the Persian fleet couldn't maneuver. Ships crashed into each other. Oars were tangled and broken. The very size of their fleet became their biggest weakness. From a golden throne set up on a nearby hill, King Xerxes watched in disbelief as his invincible navy was systematically destroyed. The sea turned red, filled with broken timber and the bodies of his men. It was a complete and total victory for the Greeks, against all odds. The victory at Salamis was a turning point in history. It shattered the Persian navy's power and forced Xerxes to retreat back to Asia, leaving a land army behind that would be defeated the following year. The threat was over. Greece was saved. And with it, the concepts of democracy, philosophy, and individual freedom that would go on to shape the entire Western world. All of this was made possible by one man's foresight, his strategic brilliance, and his incredible moral courage in the face of a raised fist. Themistocles proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a sword or a ship, but the unwavering will to stand your ground and say, "Strike, but hear me." Thanks so much for watching. If you love stories from history that sound like they were pulled straight from a Hollywood blockbuster, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments what other historical figures or events you'd like to hear about next. See you in the next one. Have you ever heard the phrase, "I only know that I know nothing"? It sounds like a paradox, right? How can you know something if you know nothing? Well, today we're diving deep into the life of the man who said it, the legendary Athenian philosopher Socrates. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a journey into the mind of one of the most influential thinkers ever. a man whose ideas on wisdom, justice, and self-knowledge are more relevant today than ever before. So, grab your thinking caps because we're about to unravel the story of a man who changed the world without writing a single word. Few lives inspire as much admiration as that of Socrates. Born in Athens around 470 BC into a humble family, his father was a stonemason and his mother a midwife. He didn't have the typical aristocratic upbringing of many philosophers. Yet, from a young age, he felt a powerful calling, a mission. It wasn't to build statues or deliver babies, but to help his fellow Athenians become better people, to improve their souls, and in doing so, to make his beloved city, Athens, truly great. He lived during an incredible time, what historians call the Age of Pericles. This was the golden age of Athens, a period of extraordinary cultural, artistic, and intellectual achievement. Imagine walking through the city and seeing the Parthenon being built, or watching plays by Sophocles and Euripides. Socrates was right in the middle of it all. He could have easily basked in the glory of his city, but he was driven by something deeper. There's a famous inscription on the front of the Temple of Delphi, the most sacred site in ancient Greece. It says, "Know thyself." For Socrates, this wasn't just a catchy phrase, it was the core of his life's work. When someone once asked him what he thought about the complex, often fantastical explanations for religious myths, he basically replied, "I don't have time for that. I'm too busy trying to understand myself." He believed that before you could understand the universe, you had to understand the universe within you. This wasn't about navel-gazing, it was a rigorous, lifelong process of self-examination. And Socrates practiced what he preached. He was a master of self-control. Through sheer willpower, he conquered his own instincts, weaknesses, and desires. He lived a simple life, walking barefoot through the marketplace, dressed in a plain robe, engaging anyone and everyone in conversation. He wasn't trying to accumulate wealth or power, he was accumulating knowledge. And not just any knowledge, but knowledge of virtue, justice, and the good life. This relentless pursuit of wisdom is what made him, in the eyes of many, the wisest and most just man of his time. His reputation grew, and soon young people from all over Greece flocked to Athens just to hear him speak. They weren't coming for formal lectures in a fancy academy. They were coming to listen to this strange, brilliant man challenge their most deeply held beliefs. Imagine being a confident young Athenian, sure of your knowledge, and having Socrates approach you in the public square. He'd start with a simple question like, "What is justice?" or "What is courage?" You'd give an answer you thought was obvious, but then, through a series of relentless, probing questions, what we now call the Socratic method, he would show you that you didn't really know what you were talking about at all. This must have been infuriating for some, but for others, it was life-changing. It was the first step toward true wisdom. And this brings us back to his most famous saying, "I only know that I know nothing." This wasn't false modesty. Socrates wasn't saying he was ignorant. He was making a profound statement about the nature of wisdom. He realized that the more he learned, the more he understood how little he actually knew. True wisdom for him wasn't about having all the answers. It was about recognizing the limits of your own knowledge and remaining endlessly curious. The person who thinks they know everything is closed off to learning. The person who admits they know nothing is open to discovering everything. This idea was radical. In a society that valued confident experts, Socrates was the ultimate anti-expert. He didn't claim to have wisdom to give you. He claimed he could help you find it within yourself. He often compared himself to his mother, the midwife. He said he didn't give birth to ideas himself, but he helped others give birth to the ideas that were already inside them. He was an intellectual midwife, helping people deliver their own understanding. But as you can imagine, not everyone appreciated having their ignorance exposed in public. While his students, like the famous Plato, adored him, many powerful people in Athens saw him as a threat. They accused him of being a nuisance, a gadfly stinging the lazy horse of the state into action. He was challenging traditions, questioning authority, and encouraging the youth to think for themselves. In a city that was becoming increasingly defensive and paranoid after a long, devastating war, this was seen as dangerous. And so, in 3999 BC, at the age of 70, this wise and just man became the victim of a terrible injustice. He was put on trial. The charges were absurd, corrupting the youth and not believing in the gods of the city. His accusers used slander and lies to turn a jury of 501 of his fellow citizens against him. During the trial, Socrates was anything but apologetic. When the judges asked him what penalty he thought he deserved, he didn't beg for mercy. Instead, he said with a touch of irony, that for his service to the state, he should be rewarded. He proposed that he be given free meals for life in the Prytaneum, the sacred public hall, an honor reserved for Olympic champions and great benefactors of the city. He was, of course, found guilty. The jury then had to vote on his punishment. His accusers proposed death. Socrates could have proposed exile, but he refused. He believed he had done nothing wrong. When asked why he hadn't prepared a defense speech, he simply said, "My whole life has been a preparation. I have spent it doing nothing unjust." In the end, the jury condemned him to die by drinking a poison made from hemlock. Even then, he had a chance to escape. His wealthy friends, including Crito, arranged a plan to bribe the guards and get him out of Athens. But Socrates refused. He had spent his entire life teaching the importance of obeying the law, even when you disagree with it. To flee now would be to betray everything he stood for. He argued that he had a social contract with Athens. The city had nurtured him, educated him, and protected him. How could he now turn his back on its laws, even when they were being applied unjustly? He chose to face death with courage and serenity, in compliance with the principles he had lived by. His final hours, as described by his student Plato, are one of the most moving accounts in all of philosophy. Surrounded by his grieving friends, he spent his last moments discussing the immortality of the soul, comforting them and facing his own end without fear. He drank the hemlock calmly, as if it were a glass of wine, and continued talking until the poison finally silenced him. Socrates left behind no written works. He believed that writing was a dead thing. He famously said he preferred to write on the souls of the living, rather than on the leather of dead animals. It is through the writings of his students, primarily Plato, that his voice has echoed through the centuries. His personal life also gives us a glimpse into his character. He was famously married to a woman named Xanthippe, who was known for her fiery temper. She became a sort of historical caricature of the nagging wife. But for Socrates, she was just another opportunity to practice patience and self-control. There's a story that one day, after unleashing a storm of insults at him, she dumped a bucket of water on his head. Socrates, completely unfazed, simply remarked, "It often thunders before it rains." Even a slap in the face was met not with anger, but with a witty observation. It's a pity a man can't know when he ought to go out wearing a helmet. The life of Socrates is a powerful lesson in intellectual humility, integrity, and courage. He taught us that the unexamined life is not worth living. He showed us that true wisdom begins with admitting our own ignorance. He demonstrated that it is better to suffer injustice than to commit it, and that one's principles are worth more than life itself. So, the next time you feel certain about something, take a moment to channel your inner Socrates. Ask yourself, how do I really know this? What if I'm wrong? That simple act of questioning, of embracing the idea that you might know nothing, isn't a sign of weakness. It's the doorway to true understanding and lifelong learning. Socrates' legacy isn't a set of doctrines, but a way of being, curious, critical, and courageous. And that's a lesson that is just as vital today as it was in ancient Athens. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the life of Socrates. If you enjoyed this journey into philosophy and history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that makes you think. Let me know in the comments what you find most inspiring about Socrates. Until next time, keep questioning. I leave my empire to the most worthy. These were the legendary last words of Alexander the Great. But what shaped this man into a conqueror who built one of the largest empires in history before the age of 33? The story begins with his father, King Philip of Macedon. Philip adored his son and saw in him the future of his kingdom. Determined to give Alexander the finest education possible, he spared no expense. The prince's early years were guided by his tutor Pausanias, but Philip soon sought out the greatest minds of the era. Leonidas trained young Alexander in physical fitness and the arts of combat. Lysimachus taught him literature, and Anaximenes instructed him in rhetoric. But the most influential teacher of all was Aristotle, the most learned man of his time. Upon Alexander's birth, Philip wrote to the great philosopher, "I have a son, and I thank the gods, not so much for his birth, but because he was born during your lifetime. I hope that through your precepts and care, he will emerge from your school a worthy disciple, a worthy son, and a capable successor to this great kingdom." Alexander did not disappoint. His ambition ignited at a young age. Hearing of his father's many conquests, the young prince would sigh and exclaim, "My father will conquer everything and leave nothing for me." This burning desire would soon be put to the test. When news of Alexander's approaching army reached Athens, panic spread. and the city quickly sued for peace. After quelling rebellions and securing alliances, Alexander arrived in Corinth. The city's most prominent figures came to pay their respects to the young monarch, all except one, a cynical philosopher named Diogenes. Intrigued, the king decided to meet this man in person. He found Diogenes living in a large clay jar, sitting at its entrance as Alexander and his splendid entourage approached. Unfazed by the philosopher's lack of deference and admiring his simple life, Alexander asked him kindly, "What can I grant you to make you happy?" Diogenes, without changing his posture, glanced at the king and replied, "Just step aside a little, you're blocking my sun." Instead of taking offense, Alexander was delighted. He turned to his companions and said, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." This encounter revealed a core part of Alexander's character, an appreciation for spirit and substance over superficialities. Just 2 years into his reign, Alexander set out to fulfill his father's grand ambition, the conquest of the Persian Empire, now ruled by Darius III. As he was about to depart, strange omens appeared, unsettling his men. A cypress wood statue of Orpheus began to sweat profusely. But the seer Aristander calmed their fears, proclaiming, "This means Alexander will perform deeds so worthy of song and praise that it will make many poets and musicians sweat to celebrate them." Alexander met the first Persian army on the banks of the Granicus River. It's said that as the battle began, he shouted, "To think I must do these things just so the idlers in Athens have something to talk about." The Persians were utterly defeated, and the Greek colonies under their rule, including Caria, fell to the victor. Caria was famously ruled by King Mausolus, whose wife Artemisia built him such a magnificent tomb that it became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, giving us the word mausoleum. Next, in the city of Gordium, Alexander faced a legendary challenge. The city was named after Gordius, a simple farmer who became king. His old ox cart was famous for the Gordian knot, a complex knot tying the yoke to the shaft. An oracle had prophesied that whoever could untie it would rule all of Asia. After trying in vain to find the ends, Alexander drew his sword and, with a single powerful stroke, sliced the knot in two. The high priestess declared, "My son, nothing can resist you." As Alexander marched victoriously, the Persian king Darius fled, leaving behind immense spoils. The conqueror's men reserved Darius's own lavish tent for him. As Alexander headed for his bath, he remarked, "Let us go wash the sweat of battle in the bath of Darius." One of his friends corrected him, "No, by my faith, but in the bath of Alexander, for the possessions of the vanquished belong to the victor." Stepping inside and seeing the unbelievable luxury, Alexander turned to his generals and said, "So this, it seems, is what it means to be a king." After conquering Palestine, Phoenicia, and Egypt, Alexander, despite being vastly outnumbered, decisively defeated the Persians at Gaugamela. Darius was killed while fleeing, and Alexander seized Babylon, the capital of the Persian Empire. His men thought the expedition was over, but their leader's ambition was far from satisfied. He pushed onward into India. There, on the banks of the Hydaspes River, he faced King Porus. The battle was fierce, and Alexander's beloved horse, Bucephalus, was killed. When the captive Porus was brought before him, Alexander asked how he wished to be treated. "Like a king," Porus replied. When Alexander asked if he had anything else to say, Porus insisted, "In like a king, everything is said." Impressed by his dignity, Alexander not only freed Porus but also returned his kingdom to him. This generosity extended to all his relationships. For Alexander, friendship was sacred. Just before setting out for Persia, he gathered his friends and distributed his personal wealth and crown properties among them. Perdiccas, one of his most loyal companions, was puzzled and asked, "What are you keeping for yourself?" Alexander laughed and answered, "Hope." Perdiccas replied, "Then we who accompany you shall also share in that hope." And he refused his portion. Intrigued, he then asked, "So, what are your treasures?" Alexander embraced him and answered, "My friends are my treasures." He treated his soldiers with the same camaraderie, often acting as just another comrade. During the grueling march through the Gedrosian desert, many of his men died from heat and thirst. At the few wells they found, Alexander always drank last, after every single one of his soldiers had their fill. One day, after weeks of torturous trekking, their water ran out. A scout found a tiny puddle, just enough to fill a single cup. Eager to show his loyalty, he rushed to offer it to the king. Alexander, parched and desperate, took the cup. But then he saw the anxious, longing eyes of all his companions fixed on him. In a moment of profound leadership, he poured the water onto the sand and declared, "Your king will not drink until all of you have. I will drink last." This noble act did more to restore the morale and faith of his exhausted army than anything else could have. Alexander wasn't just a warrior, he was also a patron of the arts. He loved spending his leisure time with great artists. After capturing Sardis and Ephesus, he chose Ephesus for his troops to rest. The famous painter Apelles lived there, and Alexander would visit his studio every morning to admire his work. The king's respect for the artist was so great that when he discovered they had both fallen in love with the same beautiful woman, Pancaspe, Alexander stepped aside and allowed Apelles to marry her. One famous story tells of a shoemaker who criticized the footwear in one of Apelles' paintings. Apelles corrected the mistake and thanked him. But when the shoemaker then presumed to critique the painting itself, Apelles retorted with the now famous phrase, "Shoemaker, stick to your shoes." Alexander has been criticized for his ambition and his excesses. During a celebration in Persepolis, the courtesan Thais reportedly exclaimed, "What a pleasure it would be to burn Xerxes' palace as he burned Athens, and let it be known that a woman avenged Greece better than all its captains." In a drunken fervor, Alexander grabbed a torch and set the magnificent city ablaze. However, many historians today doubt this story, suggesting the fire may have been accidental or politically motivated. In just 10 years, Alexander the Great built an empire that dwarfed all those before it, but his incredible journey came to a sudden end. In 323 BC, at the young age of 33, Alexander died in Babylon, a victim of the rigors of war and, as medical history suggests, a fever likely contracted from the city's unsanitary conditions. His life was a brilliant, explosive saga of ambition, leadership, and conquest that forever changed the course of history. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the life of Alexander the Great, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from history. We'll see you in the next one.